Okay, today we're going to learn the characteristics of historical fiction. 1, it includes actual historical events, but avoids rumor. So, for example, we have a story that's about Area 51. Area 51 is a real place that in the 1950s, people saw lots of lights and strange things happening, things flying through the air. Um, if you write about someone experiencing that in the 50s, that would be considered historical fiction. But the minute that you include aliens or actual spaceships in the story, it is no longer historical fiction. At that point, it becomes science fiction because you have introduced what we call rumor or something that is unproven. Okay. Same goes for a story like this. Mary Downing Hahn wrote a story called The Ghosts of Crutchfield Hall. It looks very historical. The people were in old clothing and stuff. And so you would think, oh, yeah, it's historical. But it has a ghost. That has not been scientifically proven that there is such things as ghosts. So this is considered a ghost story, not necessarily strictly historical fiction. Next, number 2, it includes fictional characters, but may also mention actual historical figures. So, for example, Time of the Witches, that is about the Salem witch trials. This time period was very, very well documented, all the things that happened. People were accusing other people of being witches, and lots of people were put on trial and so forth. The characters in this story, every single character in the story is real except for the 2 main characters. Those characters were invented because even though we have all these events documented, we don't know exactly what the people back then were thinking. We can't get inside their heads. So the author invented 2 young teenage characters to experience this time period from their own point of view. And that way the author could take liberties and imagine what someone might have thought without going off into the rumor area. So, number 3, it is subtle, not overt in its use of historical events, characters, and settings. So, subtle means just a little bit, and overt means a lot. So, for example, I read this book called Distant Waves by Suzanne Wen. She's normally a really, really good author. But in this one particular story, I did not enjoy it at all because she went beyond subtle and went to the overt. With this novel, it's about 5 sisters that are living in the late 1800s. And that was a time period in which seances were very popular. And so these girls were supposed psychics and did seances and stuff. In the story, they were on the Titanic, as you can tell from the cover here. And they met Thomas Edison, and they met Nikola Tesla at the very moment that he tried out his earthquake machine. The fact that these girls experienced all of these historical events in the same story when all of these events happened at different places in the world made it kind of unrealistic. What are the chances that one person is going to experience every single major event that happened in that time period? The Thomas Edison and Nikola Tesla events in the story didn't really have any bearing on the story. The story was about these girls who were psychics. It was not about inventions and things. So I think the author didn't make a very wise decision in including those extra events. It was a little too overt that she's exploring. Okay, the fourth and final characteristic is that it takes place in actual historical settings. So this could be ancient Greece. It could be during World War II in any of the countries involved. It could be in old Russia. It could be in the early United States. Any time period that, for me and my purposes in class, I usually say something that's 50 years or older. If it happened yesterday, it's not very historical. It's not a time period different from our own. I usually have a lot of kids that want to do like 9/11 type stuff, but it's hard for me to consider that historical fiction because I lived through it. I usually will say 50 years or more. It depends on the situation, but yeah, think of a time period that's interesting to you, that you'd like to learn about more, because I think later on we'll be doing some projects with that time period. That's all. Enjoy.